ma'am.
And what did I call?
Are you wanting to make a report?
All right, what did I call?
You called the 1-800-252-5400.
You don't want me to know what location this is?
This is for family services.
What kind?
We do intake here.
For what?
Did you call to make a report?
For what?
Okay. All right. Well, I will go ahead and disconnect if you're not wanting to.
Ma'am, hacking the phone network is criminal, ma'am. Do you know what I called?
I'm sorry.
I was on hold a very long time, and for you to disconnect the call, taking suspected reports for child abuse is a Class A misdemeanor. In some circumstances, isn't it a felony?
Okay, so did you want to make a report?
I want to know what I call. I want clarity on what I call. Using a phone service to harass and torture someone and cover for crimes is criminal. So can you first tell me what I called?
Okay, ma'am. If you don't want to make a report, I'm going to disconnect, okay?
Ma'am, covering for child abuse is a crime. I've been on hold a long time.
Thank you for taking the time to participate.
So this is what I've been going through years, but like I said, they used to be ruder because they wanted it to sting and hurt. Anything remotely reporting my family or getting my family back, he does not tolerate. It's a dangerous, jealous stalker.
If your call
and who has the power to abuse to do this? He wants for his petty illness for me to have nothing at all to do with my kids, to hurt my feelings, no, any kind of way they can possibly do it. He don't care as long as he gets his needs met. And it's happening. What their story makes absolutely no sense. They did it with a first child. I was a legal custodial parent. They still would not enforce the custody agreement, period.
An invalid option. Please choose from the following message.
Then terrorized him to where he don't want nothing to do with me. It's like distance.
To report suspected abuse, neglect, or exploitation, press 2. Online to report concerns.
So they purposely try to start arguments or start conflict and use that as an excuse to deprive me of services that they were already doing to begin with.
Residents in a Texas nursing home, press 2. To repeat these options, felony, a $1,000
malicious false reports or state jail felony.
For a court to modify child custody orders. You are protected if you make a report in good faith. Customer satisfaction.
Hello, you've reached the Texas Abuse Hotline. May I have your first and last name?
It's Kiana Clark.
Spell that first name, Ms. Clark.
It's Key. That's my first name. Last name Clark, Clark.
Are you a child or to an adult?
Well, my daughter as well as myself is in an abusive situation. I'm getting railroaded by the government, and they're using my daughter as bait to torment me and harass me and abusing her and covering for abuse and mistreatment of her.
Okay, let me get some information on you guys. What is your address? Harassed.
I'm sorry, you said that it's the two of us here and I'm healthy and being harassed?
Right, you said you were healthy. Nobody had special needs or disabilities, right?
Yes.
And then you said that you guys were being bothered or harassed by someone.
Right. I just kind of misunderstood because you said you're healthy, but you're getting harassed. So it was like sarcasm, and I was just kind of curious. What did I call?
You're calling the statewide intake, the abuse and neglect hotline.
Okay. Well, there was another representative I called prior that hung up, and I'm kind of suspicious because there was like almost 30-something reports that were never investigated. And then I would go to CPS in person, and then they covered for it. And the police showed up initially and interrupted me and told me to leave, forced me to leave when I was trying to do a child abuse report. They would show up at multitude of locations, harass and mistreat me, and enforce abuse I'm subjected to. So now they have enlisted these businesses and locations to take the fall for their criminal activity. I'm not quite sure what would provoke the government to violate me at hotel stays, trying to order food, catching the bus, even sitting at bus stops. Why they would scheme harassment in all kind of avenues I can't report because it doesn't sound realistic. But here's what I'm concerned about. Since September 24, 2011, my daughter went over to her dad's house and came back with bruises. They disregarded the experience, so I called the police. And the police took pictures of the bruises, and then it was flipped on me. In 2011, I wasn't aware of being stalked or anything, but it was weird that police would cover for that. So they flipped it on me and nothing happened. Supposedly the dad moved out the house to cover up for the child abuse. They lied and said that he moved, but he really didn't move. So then fast forward, that he was out of my daughter's life for a while. He didn't, she called and he wouldn't answer the phone. There was a graduation of another child. He didn't respond or come to the son's graduation. He was behind a lot in child support payments. So he had a health condition. So when he had that health condition, he came back into her life. That was about the end of 2017, where he came over and really started having a relationship, picking her up and different things of that sort. So at that point, she could talk. And I knew that she would notify me if anything was going on amiss. So I gave him another opportunity. So then she reported in February 2018 that the party whipped her with the metal part of the belt, sat on her where she couldn't breathe. And then I communicated with the stepmom again. And I said, what happened then? And she says, I'm not talking about that with you. I said, well, you should come over there again until you talk about it. So then I'm involved in this huge harassment scheme and campaign. Parties from the school, a CPS worker, a lot of parties were involved in trying to sabotage my child custody rights that I believe someone set up. So when they incriminated themselves, they came when I was eventually arrested out of criminal activity on false charges from the police department. They covered for a multitude of crimes that happened in that area that I tried to report, and no investigation was done for multiple reports, including voyeurism with a child in the household. So then when they falsely arrested me, I went to jail. The CPS worker came and covered for, he said that he was taking my child custody rights away. I assaulted the officer and evaded arrest. I said, check the body cam footage out. They blatantly lied. I told you that a multitude of people were scheming and lying on me. I said the school, multiple parties were lying at the school. All you would need to do is an investigation, and you can see that. I said this before the false arrest. He covered for it and said he was taking my child custody rights away. He came multiple times harassing me, tormenting me, telling me he was going to take my child custody rights away and I was not going to have access to my daughter. Well, when I wrote multitude of locations and multiple parties got caught in blatant lies, it was obvious. They did an administrative review and a letter, and there was multitude of lies in there. They said that I made statements that I didn't make, and it was easily proven by the handwritten letters that I made when I was in jail that they had made a multitude of false statements. Then when they got caught in that lie, he completely disappeared. Okay. All the chaos I reported, all disappeared. And when I was on hold making false statements to a family court, I heard was a crime, and that's what he did. So moving forward, so the court also was corrupt. So moving forward, the court took my child custody rights away. They forgot in their corruption. Now they no longer have a CPS investigation because they had to erase this man out because he got caught in criminal activity. So some kind of way, they've taken my child custody rights away. A whole court, 2 different judges, Beecham and Kim Cook. They have completely forgot that they have no investigation, no evidence, period. So when they realized that what they did was highly criminal, did not give me a court appointed attorney when I was indigent, desperate, begging for my life, homeless on the street out of corruption. Instead of rendering our family any assistance, any resources, they covered for it. When they sat on it and realized what they had done, they also disappeared and blamed it on Judge Mary Murphy, who no one can find. So fast forward, I've been detained reporting the child abuse. I went to the Texas Rangers reporting the child abuse and my son getting hit with a car. They did it with the first son. Police showed up because I could not get access. I could not get a police or no party to abide by the law. So I went up to the school that my son had attended years, the same school the basketball team came over, and a multitude of times I baked cookies, had sleepovers. That the superintendent dropped my child off at home, different times when they were sick in different situations. She now claims that she didn't know if I was a parent. So when I came to withdraw my son from school, because I could not get anyone to abide by the law and enforce a child custody agreement, a current child custody agreement, the police showed up and gave me a criminal trespass to deprive me access to my son. He also got hit with a car in the past, and the police tried to cover for that.
Okay, what's the
and denied investigation. I'm sorry?
What's the age of your son?
My son is 19 now.
Okay.
But what happened when he got hit with the car, and multiple parties were enticed to the alienation schemes to keep me away from my child, and trying to deter him from ever having access to me and being a part of my life. So when he was in that environment, they developed these schemes to keep me away from my child. And the police department is also enforcing. He did get hit with a car, and he witnessed the police department covering for it. What's your name again?
My name is Dalia, spelled D like David, A-L-I-A.
Okay,
and
so
my employee ID is 5370.
Oh, this is the first time I ever got one. They refused to give me the employee IDs in the past. And like I said, I made close to 30-something reports that they refused any investigation. I no call, period. From all the calls I made, they've hung up in my face, covered for the crimes a multitude of times, and it was a multitude of reports that I've been making that no one has responded. The first time that I ever got a response was this year, and she covered for it too. We have James Hastings. We have another lady named Ashita or something like that. But you can look, and all of these parties cover for the crimes. Then a Vivian Green that covered for the crimes. So they call me, they're emotionally abusive, and they cover for all the criminal activity. I went in person to CPS workers. It left when I was trying to report the child abuse, and then security came and removed me in criminal activity, deprived me of the right to speak to a supervisor. I don't know why all these parties openly commit felonies and even sicker continually get away with it to deprive me of access to my child. If these parties are being controlled by a dangerous psycho stalker, I don't think that that's safe for anyone. Dangerous psycho stalkers do not need to be running this multitude of people. So I have reported it multiple times. I don't know if there's something wrong with the Dallas location to where they're just enlisting for corrupt parties to call me and cover for crimes. She deprived me of administrative review. August 19th of this year, my daughter said that she got hit with someone got hit. And then she thought it was something wrong with her eye or something. And anyway, to make a long story short, I showed the police the text. The police covered for it and deprived me of investigation. I reported it to CPS. They deprived me of investigation. I reported it to a social worker. She covered for it and dropped me from a program I was on. I can't get any kind of help anywhere. I'm blacklisted completely from every last domestic violence location that I've contacted. Victims advocates, police used to come personally and interrupt and force me to leave. They used to come themselves and force me to leave. Now they set up for the businesses to deprive me of services. None of them that I've ever been to will help or call. All of them.
Okay.
Is that child abuse?
Yeah.
What do I do when all the social workers and then a multitude of people at this location cover for the crimes, ma'am? Is that child abuse?
It could be abusive. But
It could be. Are you sure this is an abuse hotline? That could be abusive? You're sure that this is a child abuse hotline? This would be the second party that is covering for the chaos, ma'am. This is the second time I called today, and then like I had told you prior, there were 30-something, almost 30 reports that an investigation was never done on. Then a caseworker deprived me of a conclusion of a report, and you said that could be abusive? My son got hit with a car, and police covered for it?
To you, yes. It could be definitely abusive to you. The Child Protective Services is worried about abuse to the children. So I'm wondering how Michaela is doing with everything that's been going on, with what you're telling me has been done to you guys. How's Michaela holding up?
I wouldn't know. I don't have access to her. They set up for supervised visits out of the corruption, and Family Place FLP is depriving me of that, and the government is depriving us of law enforcement. Even for the party that hit my son with the car, we can't get law enforcement, period. We're blacklisted. We were blacklisted from services before COVID. And then when I found out the government was behind the chaos, everything was shut down. And no one had civil rights. When I was closing in and I had evidence of the government's corruption, then I still couldn't get services with COVID. But I did report September 24th, 2011, child abuse then, bruises. I reported February of 2018, someone sat on the stepmom sat on my daughter, whipped her with a metal part of the belt where she couldn't breathe. I reported April of 19th. For a long majority of that time period, I did not have access to my daughter out of corruption, and multitude of people lied, which is a crime. I just heard on the recording that is a state jail. I think they said felony to make false statements to CPS in the family court. Then I told you, fast forward April 19th, police covered for her being hit, which is a crime itself. Not reporting suspected child abuse is a crime for the hotline, CPS workers, and the police, and a multitude of churches that hear this chaos and ignore it.
Okay. On the April 19th, was it the stepmom again, or who was it?
I don't know. They deprived me of investigation. I don't have my access to my daughter out of criminal activity. I can't find parties that are not covering for it. I don't understand why it's impossible for the government to get the consequences they deserve for these outrageous events. Who on the planet to break into someone's phone, sabotage and counterfeit calls, deprive them of calls, and then use that as an avenue when it's not being recorded to torture and violate someone emotionally, and get away with it for years, deprive them of legal representation, any avenue to escape their abuse, even come in schemes with no one calling to arrest, violate, and mistreat. So what avenues do we have to get protected?
Right. Well, I did document everything. I've been documenting as you've been reporting it, and I can send it out to Child Protective Services with the instances of abuse that you've reported. So they should look into it.
They keep covering for it. I don't know how we can combat all these people that are covering for these extreme events. Why someone would sabotage almost 30-something reports. Who is this judge that I tried to get down to the bottom of who this judge is that disappeared and no one can find her? Then they call the police or security to remove me to prevent me from finding out who this judge was. And while a multitude of parties are committing crimes, I just heard that was a crime to make false statements. These judges that cover for this and made false statements, it's criminal. To hinder a child custody agreement is a felony. To be a judge and then not report the suspected abuse is a crime. And then when they couldn't even get their story straight and took my child custody right, supposedly terminated my rights with no CPS investigation period, because they had to remove this other party. And if my rights are terminated, I thought in the state of Texas, if your rights were terminated, you didn't pay child support. I'm paying child support. They can't get their story straight.
Do they even let you talk on the phone with the child?
No. I mean, there's a lot of criminal activity that I have been unable to report. There's a lot of things done out of malice. I can't report my child abuse. I'm being deprived of law enforcement and support systems. I went to IBOC church and was drug out of it begging for my life. The churches will not render me services they provide. Conspiracy to violate civil rights is a criminal offense, and it happened before COVID. Multiple schemes to violate my civil rights that were ignored, then no one had them. I'm not saying that it definitely is related, but that is amazing that a multitude of parties witnessed me being violated and did nothing. Then they didn't have rights. I'm just saying that psycho deranged people do not need to run the government. It's not safe for anyone. But I have been repetitively ignored for years.
Well, I'm hearing you now. I'm putting down the things that you told me now, and I'm going to send it out with the hope that the next worker who gets it is going to see it, just take it as truth and look into the situation.
Well, there's so many parties I'm concerned, ma'am, that enforce the criminal activity, because when I went up there, they deprived me of speaking with the social worker and keep lying and being dishonest about procedures to cover for the criminal activity. I'm afraid that someone's contacting these locations, and we need something to be done for these corrupt government officials and using their power, abusing their power to have other parties conspire in their crimes and cover for them and enforce them. I went to Internal Affairs trying to report the criminal activity, and to the Internal Affairs that I was targeted by multiple different police departments, and they removed me from reporting crimes there. I went to the FBI trying to report it, and I was handcuffed. So I'm concerned about my safety as well as my children. I don't think that it was right for me to try to reach out to a church and get drug out of that and violated and thrown on concrete in front of a lot of different witnesses. It's a pretty big church. And for them, multiple parties to sit, hear me begging for my life and tell them I'm afraid for my life, the government, because the pastor wouldn't return my calls. He kept ducking and dodging me, and I told him I feared my life. So then I tried to reach out to the congregation I knew. Then someone grabbed me, terrified for my life, grabbed me. I fell because they were running me out so bad, so quick. I fell, so they drugged me out the church, feet, legs dangling on the ground. And to get outside was a pretty far drag. So they dragged me all the way outside, then threw me outside on the concrete. I actually thought they were going to kill me. I was terrified. So when I got outside, there was a police officer waiting on me, violating me emotionally, degrading me, and talking trash, walking all the way to the bus stop, terrified for my life.
And this happened recently?
It's happening recently. Now, ma'am, are you sure this is abuse hotline? Because hacking a phone network is a criminal offense.
I am positive. You did reach the abuse hotline.
Right. So all of these things, I'm giving you an outline of all of my experiences. I was drug out of the church right before COVID. That was April, I believe it was April 2019.
Okay.
I'm just giving you an outline of my multiple different attempts to protect my family as well as myself, and we're deprived of law enforcement. The multitude of parties that are enlisted into this criminal activity. Hacking a phone network is a criminal offense. It's especially dangerous if corrupt government officials that have access to scammers are doing this, because it can put other parties at risk. Corrupt people don't need to be controlling a phone network that has access to scammers.
I can deal with corrupt officials. I don't, or any way to get the police.
Well, you're supposed to. It should be something on the recording. If they're corrupt, they have no right to make false statements to a family court. These are still felonies, even if it is corrupt officials. It doesn't change that they're officials. They're still felonies, a multitude of them that are racking up. These are charges that are being ignored. Interference with child custody is a felony. Not reporting suspected child abuse in your family court. Police officers, CPS workers, social workers, these are criminal offenses. I just heard on your recording that it's a state jail felony to make false statements to a family court. CPS workers doing so and then evaporating out of the experience because they couldn't get their story straight. Now they have disappeared. Then the court has realized that, hey, we have taken child custody rights away and there has not been any CPS investigation because we had to erase him out the experience. So then they realized that they were committing crimes, then set up for Judge Mary Murphy to do it because they didn't want to take responsibility for their actions. Now no one can find Judge Mary Murphy.
There might have been something that fell through with CPS, so I'm going to send forward the information that you told me, and I'm going to send it to you.
Well, I don't know. They keep coming up with lies, ma'am. I mean, they're in, but here's the thing. Even if my child custody rights were supposedly terminated, I'm still paying child support. I thought in the state of Texas, if your rights were terminated, you don't pay child support. I don't mind taking care of my daughter. I want access to my daughter, but I'm just trying to show you there's a lot of discrepancies in these lies. That people don't have their story straight. And these are felonies that are getting ignored.
Okay. Well, I did note that. I do have the note of you not having access and you paying child support after the termination. So I'm going to send this out in report number. And,
ma'am, in addition to that, out of corruption, I'm getting a lot of child support payments are garnished and are missing. A lot of payments that the dad has made to two different dads, there's problems with payments that are missing, discrepancies. Like for one case, almost $20,000. They tried to abate almost $30,000 for another case. And then when they got caught in that corruption, then they changed it. But $5,800 came up missing. Another time, $3,000 came up missing. And they told me every month they never got it. It was a blatant lie. Thousands of dollars have disappeared in child support payments. And no one will do an investigation for it. They threaten the police. Yes, they threaten the police to enforce the criminal activity of these stolen payments. I've had food stamps stolen out of corruption and a crisis when I needed it most. The government enforced it and covered for it. Social Security, they went back and created debt all the way from 2008, and it's currently 2022. They were trying to deprive me of payments that my son as well as myself should have been eligible for. And then they called security to enforce that we didn't get it. Now they have concocted out a corruption that we owe from 2008, and they're just telling us in 2022. In addition to that, criminal activity has taken place, so I can't get the stimulus, the COVID-19 stimulus check that everybody else has been eligible to receive. I can't get it. And then after I was finally able, police stole Social Security cards and all kind of other chaos happened. So now that I can finally get it, they created a problem with the child support division, so it'll just be taken now. I have never received a stimulus check out of corruption. And I was homeless on the street, scared for my life.
Do you know, I mean, you do. What's the name of the father of Michaela?
Yes, he went up. They enticed him to go up to the family court. He has health issues and his mental capacity is not the same since he had his health incident. So they enticed him to go up to the family court and make false statements. And he stated that I was neglectful. They have no clue what I have done to be neglectful because they don't have their life straight. So they have taken my child custody rights and don't know why. Neglect and abuse, which no one knows why. They interviewed my daughter, and my daughter stated in the interview that they gave me the information that she was happy and there was nothing wrong in her environment. I was creative and fun, and she loved me. So where did they get neglect? We lived alone. Where did the neglect come from?
The phone number for Michael, are you able, do you have it? Are you able to contact him and ask him how Michaela's doing?
This is a child abuse hotline, ma'am. I reported to you a lot of chaos, and it appears that you're covering for it. These are felonies that are being committed, and I don't understand why you cover for it. What's your name?
My name is Dalia, D-A-L-I.
Yes, because I call Dalia all over the United States, and the multitude of parties you have to see to believe it are covering up for the criminal activity. As I told you initially at the beginning of this call, hacking a phone network is a criminal offense. Scamming people and pretending like you're parties that you're not is a crime. And to pretend if you're a CPS child abuse intake and you're not is highly criminal. That's not to enlist a scammer to enforce child abuse is sick.
You are on the Child Abuse Hotline. You dialed number and you got through. I am an employee.
Okay, well, it's not okay for two employees in a row to try to cover for criminal activity, ma'am. I want to focus on what is going to be done for these government officials that are committing felonies. Not calling Michael. He doesn't answer my call. He shouldn't have deprived me of access to my child anyway.
Send it forward for the child.
Yeah, but when I call Michael, he covers for it and hangs up and deprives me of any information. Initially, they said that they didn't know why. He said that he didn't know why he did it. Well, you went up there. They enticed him to go up there and put his name on the line and saying that it was neglect and some kind of abuse that they don't know of. So you went up there and set up a protection order for neglect and abuse, and you don't know what it is. So I reported it to the police, and they covered for it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to send this forward for the child. That's all I can do. I can't do with other prosecutions, but for the child, for CPS.
That is a vital, ma'am. Hold on, let's dissect. That is a requirement. Making false statements to intercept child custody rights, that is your responsibility. Even if it is government officials. I heard while I was on hold, making false statements to a family court and CPS is a crime. So for you to say that you can't do anything about that, that's criminal. That is your responsibility. Even if it is the government, they have made false statements and evaporated a CPS worker out of the experience. What do you mean you can't do anything about it? But they haven't for years. That is your responsibility.
Child, and I'm going to put everything in there and let them try it and make sure she's being safe and nothing is being done to make it.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so basically you're saying that you're going to enforce the criminal activity to intercept my child custody rights. You're going to enforce that. So your responsibility is to make sure I have nothing to do with my child. Any avenue possible. So now what you want to do is just make sure she's safe now to enforce the interference with child custody crimes. Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't want to enforce anything regarding
Okay, well, I just described to you my child was in an abusive environment. I gave you several examples of the abuse and evidence, and you're enforcing her to be in a toxic environment by stating that you just want to see if she's safe now. Let's see if she's safe now.
I want to make sure she's safe, and I will send it for the things that you told me.
Yeah, interference with child custody is a felony, and the government should not be enforcing it like they did with my son.
I don't know what happened with the son, with your older
He
son,
got hit with a
but
car. The
I'm
police
gonna
tried to cover
find
for
out
it.
what
He got hit with a car. The police tried to cover for it. I was the legal custodial parent, and no one would enforce my child custody rights, period. So I went up to the school to withdraw my son. The police showed up, gave me a criminal trespass, enforcing that I have nothing to do with my child. So they didn't want me coming to his games, any events, so they gave me a criminal trespass out of criminal activity. Multiple parties witnessed it, sat there, did nothing at the school, knowing full blown well I was a legal custodial parent, and covered for it and helped the police enforce it.
I'm sending this forward. I'm going to put down all the information. I'm going to do what I can and get it out there. Okay?
What's the report number, ma'am?
No, I will.
What's the report number?
767-19114.
You said 767-19. Is that correct?
114. Correct.
Okay, ma'am. What are we going to do about that location being corrupt and you depriving me of services like a multitude? I have conspiracies to violate civil rights crimes going on. Parties are enticed to violate my civil rights and deny me services.
I wrote everything down, and I'm going to get a report out for CPS.
I think, what about the ombudsman? I reached out to them, and they haven't responded back.
I don't know why they haven't responded, but I am going to take the information you gave me and send it out to CPS.
Okay, but how do I get the investigation for these corrupt officials that are abusing their power to violate and torment a family for profit?
The court or law enforcement is where you can report it, and if you want to...
It said, the recording stated that if someone makes false statements to CPS, it was a crime, and if you guys refuse to investigate it, then how do people pick up their charges? If you cover for it.
I can put that you have concerns that others have made false statements on you. I can put that in my report.
Oh, that they haven't been doing that. Yes. Okay, so if you put others have made, years have passed and they refuse to tell the truth. Okay, so now you're putting that in a report. How do they pick up their charges? Because it's a crime. These are felonies.
That is enough to the investigator to look into that, and if it's false, then they, I don't know exactly what the process is, but there's some process that they can do for that.
So each party that conspired to cover for this, that's breaking up felonies for them too, right? Because if you're an investigator assigned to the case and you cover for it and you mistreat a party to cover for crimes, that also is criminal as well, isn't it? Because that's enforcing the child abuse and the criminal activity. So they made themselves conspirators. I just want to get
professionals, but I don't know
clarity. Okay, so if a CPS worker is assigned and abuses their power to enforce and cover up for the child abuse, you don't know if that's criminal? And you're the Texas Abuse Hotline?
I told you that I don't know those rules. I just don't.
Okay, well, let me inform you, ma'am. Yes, it's criminal. If a CPS worker hears about suspected child abuse and covers for it, that is a Class A misdemeanor, in some cases a felony. It's a crime. So I'm not understanding why a multitude of CPS workers have went under the radar and not had any kind of consequences for this criminal activity. It is criminal. I don't understand how a family court can go under a radar, multiple different judges to deprive me of my right to even appear at my court date.
I let you go so I can work on this. I'm going to do my best with it.
They've been doing their best, ma'am, for years, and these felonies are racking up. At least there, like I said, it was close to 30-something reports that I reported over the phone and never had an investigation for, period. Period. They would not do it, period. Then this year, the first investigation was ever done.
Well, let's hope it changes. I do have to let you go. I'm going to have to let you go.
Yeah, this is some extreme events, and you have more important people that you need to talk to, ma'am. These are extreme events. You there?
Thank you for taking the time.
But it used to be worse.
In our survey.
It used to be worse. Now they're just conning better, so that's part of the gaslighting, the abuse. They have to minimize this chaos. Churches do it. No one has validated my experience. When they see it, they cover for it, and that's part of what the police like. They want for me to be gaslit and not have any kind of validation for my experience. That's part of getting away with their crimes. What they're wanting to do is they used to use these torture techniques and gaslight me and mistreat me. They want me to believe I'm mentally ill, and they want and convince that's why all the trolls are in here. It's deliberate schemes to for the smear campaign to get away with these crimes. And the petty torture techniques are also emotional and psychological abuse to help for my to diminish my emotional well-being. It's intentional. That's what the cars are for. That's what for these people to disregard all my experience. These are deliberate tactics for emotional abuse. Anyway, this is the video diary for today.